What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here. This is Flash Season 2, Episode 1, The Man Who Saved Central City. I really should have watched this one first, because now some of what was said in Arrow actually, well, not some, one line of what's said in Arrow makes more sense. Um, like I said in my Arrow review, I'm, Flash comes in the week before Arrow does, as far as like TV show. So they had this episode first, and then they had Arrow. So the whole Flash Day parade now, that line from Captain Lance makes more sense. Anyway, good opening. They had a bit of that the modern stuff mixed in with flashbacks, some of which told story of what happened with the wormhole, some of which kind of went back to Barry's childhood again. Uh, I I'm not gonna say that I hate the flashbacks, but whenever they do it, it kind of feels like, oh, this is Arrow. Like they started off doing it in the first season, and I was like, oh, this is exactly like Arrow. But then they stopped doing it. I'm like, oh, okay, good. They still had him from time to time just to tell, Barry's childhood stuff like that, stuff with Joe and Iris when he was younger. So to have some of that from time to time isn't that bad. In fact, some of it really helps to understand the dynamic of the relationship between Barry and Joe. But on top of that, the flashback to the wormhole. Whenever they didn't open with the wormhole thing, I was like, really? Like we're just going to ignore that? We're not going to find out what happened? And then of course they go back. I kind of figured something was going to happen to Ronnie, mainly because in DC's Legends of Tomorrow they have a different partner to Professor Stein to become Firestorm. Um, so yeah, I kind of knew Ronnie was going to leave at some point. I just didn't know when. So to see the fact that they actually had to, he sacrificed himself, and Stein almost did, but Barry saved him to destroy the wormhole. That's a good way to go out. That is he really dead? One of the important things about DC is if there's no body, you need to check that. Even if there is a body, half the time they're still alive. Like it's like, oh, they're dead. Here's their dead body. It's okay. We've got something that can revive them. Oh, okay, good. So anyway, it was interesting to see that's how it happened. That's how Ronnie disappeared. And it opens several months after, which is a good move because Flash has saved the city. Everybody loves the Flash, but Barry isn't really feeling like a hero. After what happened with Ronnie and Professor Stein, he doesn't feel like a hero. He feels like it was all his fault. They're the reasons that Eddie died, Ronnie is gone. He feels responsible. That opening scene too is kind of heartbreaking because at first I thought, oh, so they're working together to stop Starton Rory, okay. And all of a sudden it cuts to them like celebrating and stuff. And then all of a sudden Eddie shows up and like, oh, this is not real. This is all in his mind. And then Wells shows up and like stands up, and I'm just like, dang. And then it flashes and he's in Star Labs alone. So he's been doing this alone for a while. He wants to be on his own. He doesn't want to be responsible for anybody else, because he doesn't want to be responsible for any more of his friends dying. But ultimately, when you think about it in that context, this episode does become a bit predictable because I've seen this storyline before where somebody wants to be alone, and then ultimately they face a problem that they can't face alone, and so their friends show up to help. And, in that respect, it was a bit predictable, but it was still enjoyable. It was done in a way I enjoy these characters, so seeing a cliche story like this, I'm able to enjoy it because I like the characters, because I want to see what happens with these characters. I want to see Barry, end up having help from his friends again. The group dynamic in the show is very well done, much better than in Arrow. That's just my opinion. So yeah, you have this villain who kind of comes out of nowhere. You kind of wonder about his intentions, which they do reveal later. Um, but he comes in at the Flash Day parade, and yeah, it kind of had a Spider-Man 3 feel to it, where the hero shows up and everybody's cheering him on, and then all of a sudden a villain shows up to ruin the day. Um, so in that respect, it was I kind of saw that coming too, but yeah, not too bad. The villain himself was pretty interesting. He could absorb radiation and then grow too. Uh, it's interesting to see Cisco working with the police, and he creates like this boot for this anti-metahuman task force that Joe set up, and so he tries to stop this. They end up calling him Atom Smasher, and he shrugs off the boot just by growing and breaking out of it. And so Barry tries his hardest to fight him and ultimately cannot because he can't do it alone. Uh, and so he almost gets himself killed. Joe and Iris kind of have like an intervention for him to say, "Look, you're just trying to get yourself killed. We can't allow that. We're going to help you whether you want it or not." And ultimately, what it takes is Barry goes and visits Caitlin at this whatever different lab, and is kind of talking to her because I kind of wondered if she was going to blame him for what happened to Ronnie. But ultimately she doesn't, and I like that. I like the fact that she is, where in some other shows she might blame him because, if it weren't for you and your idea to go back in time to save your mom and blah, 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 then Ronnie wouldn't have done this and he wouldn't be gone. They would draw this random line of dots from what he did to save his mom to Ronnie sacrificing himself to save the city, and they would blame him for it. Arrow does that all the time. One of the frustrating things about it. I'm gonna be, because I'm watching these at the same time, and because they do work together. I am gonna be drawing some comparisons between Arrow and the Flash, because you really have to look at it as these are two shows that are supposed to go together. They are in the same universe. They do work together at times, so it's interesting to see that one show doesn't get stuff like that. In Arrow, it feels like the relationships between characters, their interactions, half of them don't make sense. It's like that doesn't feel natural. That doesn't feel like something somebody would actually do in that case. But then you look at The Flash, and most of these characters act pretty much how I would expect them to act, pretty much how I would act in that situation. So, I don't know, it's just very curious to see, like, I don't know. The best way to explain it is I'm glad that they are able to handle these relationships and interactions between characters well, because it gives me something to enjoy compared to Arrow, where I get frustrated with characters. So I don't know why I'm tired. It's not even nighttime. Anyway. So he goes and talks to her. She says, I don't blame you. He did what he was supposed to do. He kind of accidentally shows her the drive that Wells/Fawn left for him, which ends up being Wells admitting to killing his mother, which kind of came out of nowhere for me. I'm like, whenever he first got it, I was like, oh great, this is going to be something that's going to mess him up, or it's going to be some sort of the plan that he didn't tell him, and it's going to be something that's going to ruin their day. That after all this works out, they're going to watch it at the end of this episode, and it's just going to completely ruin their day. But no, it comes in the middle of the episode. He watches it, and it's admitting to killing his mother, which ends up getting his father out of prison. I was like, wow, that can only mean things are about to go horribly wrong. Like, I don't know. That was the first thought that came to mind. As soon as I found out his dad was going to be let out of prison, I was like, yeah, things are going to go wrong. I could feel it coming. And they kind of do, but I'll get to that in a second. But they end up stopping the radiation guy, who then tells them about their villain. I like this. It's much, much better than how they handled the villain in the first season. The very first episode, that Dr. Wells is the bad guy. The only mystery about him was, the fact that he was actually from the future, which you could kind of tell because of the fact that he was talking to something that showed him the future. But ultimately, the main thing was, oh, he's not actually Harrison Wells. He was, face swapped with somebody else. So, that was the only real mystery there. The rest of it was like, I could see it coming from episode 1 because you practically showed it to me. In this episode, you find out about this guy named Zoom, from this radiation guy, and that's why he went to kill the Flash. This guy named Zoom told him to. On the one hand, Zoom, really? Like, I don't know. Why that name? Come on in, Zoom, come on in, Zoom. Yeah, I'm having flashbacks to my childhood and a show named Zoom. It seems like such a cheesy name compared to some of the other nicknames that these villains are getting. But the one thing that I don't like, though, is that because they are keeping this guy in mystery, my thought process is, okay, so we're going to get introduced to a new character very soon, right? Like, we're going to meet this new character. They're going to try to convince us to trust him or her, whoever it is, and ultimately they're going to be the bad guy. And the final moment of the show, we saw a guy taking a picture of Barry Allen earlier, and then we get introduced to this guy named Jay Garrick, who says, your world is in danger, or something like that. And I'm like, the way they introduce him just makes me feel like you can't trust him. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but generally whenever it comes to something like this, like I think to a show like, hang on, let me think of one that fits. I can't really think of a good example right now. But there are moments where you got this new bad guy that just got introduced, and then all of a sudden you get introduced to a new character at about the same time. It's almost like whenever, Oliver Queen comes into town, the same time the Arrow, or this Hood guy, comes into town. You kind of wonder why people don't figure it out. The same thing here. We get introduced to this new bad guy named Zoom the same time we get introduced to this new character named Jay Garrick. And he's talking about your world is in danger. I'm like, okay, so let me guess. He's going to tell them that they need to help him stop, and then he's going to end up being the bad guy. Like, unless they introduce us to another new character in the next couple episodes, I feel like this guy is going to be the bad guy in secret, and it's going to be a shocking reveal. I don't know. They could have handled it a bit better. If we just saw this one guy taking pictures of Barry, and then we start to see a bit more of him in the next few episodes, and they start to realize, hey, this guy is following Barry. We need to find out who he is. And they're kind of building up to be a bad guy. Ultimately, though, they finally find him, and he's like, I've been researching Barry Allen because I need his help. And then I'll be like, okay, so maybe he's not a bad guy. Although then they could twist it and really make him a bad guy, which would be even more twisty. But the introduction of this character is just so forced into the end, and the way he just walks in, and it's just like, how did we not see him coming? It's like, yeah, he's probably going to be the bad guy. Now, am I right or am I wrong? Who knows? We'll find out later. But that's just my opinion, the way they handled it. It could have been handled better. But, overall, though, I'm excited to see where it's going. I'm excited to see these characters, these new characters being introduced. You get to see a bit more Cisco's abilities in this one, too. Like, he sees this Atom Smasher guy, and then all of a sudden flashes to, I guess, another timeline where Atom Smasher is doing something. We didn't get to see much of it, but it's interesting to see what his powers are allowing him to do. Is he seeing another timeline, or is he seeing another dimension? What is he seeing into? What is he seeing exactly? I'm interested to see that. I'm curious to see how they're going to handle it, how they're going to go further into this. And then ultimately, like I said earlier, with Barry's dad getting released, I knew something bad was about to happen. I did not see this coming, though. I thought maybe he was going to get killed, like, as soon as he's leaving, or, he was going to, like, they were going to think, oh, the DA's saying it's looking good, and then ultimately it's not going to be enough because of some reason, and he's not going to get let out. So the way they handled it was a bit unexpected, and it was pretty good. It wasn't like the best way to handle it, but at the same time, I kind of understand his dad's line of thinking that if I'm around, you're gonna try your hardest to be my son. You're gonna try your hardest to attend to me. Try to fix your relationship with me because we're finally together. But right now, what the city needs is not Barry Allen. They don't need Barry Allen, Henry Allen's son. They need Barry Allen, the Flash. They need you to be the Flash. And if I'm around, you're gonna not be focused enough to be the Flash. So I get that line of thinking. At the same time, though, it's like, couldn't you stick around for like 1, 2 more days? Just have some father-son time that you have not been able to have for the past 15 years, 14 years, whatever. Like, give it some time. Because it kind of feels like, why would you just leave right now? At your welcome home party, you're gonna leave? Really? That's weird. Why would you do that? That's kind of harsh. So that was a bit sad and a bit frustrating too. I just, I guess the one thing that would have made it better is if you let him stick around for a couple of days. I would have liked that a lot better than just, oh, I'm here, hi, it's good to be back, but now I gotta go. See ya. It's kind of sad. So, a couple other things moving forward that I'm curious about and I want to see more of. One, now that Eobard Thawne has been taken out of the timeline, it does beg the question, what does that mean exactly? Like, obviously, Nora Allen is still dead. But it's kind of like, why? Like, I don't know. The way that, I guess the terminology that Cisco used, erased from existence, kind of makes me think, if he's truly erased from existence, that means he didn't travel back in time to kill Barry's mom. And he also has not been here this whole time, which means, like, none of what he did should matter. So it's confusing to me how the timeline is unchanged. Like, I feel like time should change a little bit. I don't know how. I don't know what they could possibly do. Because it feels like as soon as he got erased from existence, it feels like something should have changed. Like the entire timeline should have changed. But I don't know. I'm curious to see kind of what they do with that, how they handle that going forward, if that's going to change anything at all. The other thing that I want to see more of is I want to see kind of more working together with Arrow's story. Because one of the great things about Marvel right now is how well they connect everything. You're thinking of, beyond just all these movies are working towards Infinity War and Avengers and all that. You've also got Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which ties directly into the movies sometimes. You've got Agent Carter, which ties into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. You've got Daredevil and Jessica Jones tying in together. Luke Cage is about to get his own show, and that's kind of going to be tied in. I'm not sure how well they're going to tie it into the movies, but for right now, like, it's exciting to see them all tie together. I would like to see a bit more tie-in with Arrow. And on top of that, I'd like to see another show, because you've already got the Flash, you've already got Green Arrow. I want to see another character make an appearance. I want to see another character start to get their own show. Obviously, they've got Supergirl, but that's on CBS, completely different, completely different television universe. And obviously, Flash did make an appearance this week on Supergirl, but I would like to see another show for DC get a kickstart on the CW. Of course, I say that and they just had Legends of Tomorrow, but I don't know. I would like to see another superhero get the limelight. I'm not sure who. I'm not sure who you could really focus on. But, like, just all the tie-ins would be so much fun. I mean, they had a Flash symbol, and Cisco, Caitlin's like, Cisco, what made you think of that? Oh, I think I read it in a comic book somewhere. Funny stuff like that could be a lot more fun if it was actually tied in together. If there was actually a Batman in this universe, or some, a Nightwing or a Robin, something like that. I don't know. It would just be so fun for them to tie in more characters from DC's universe. And obviously some of them they may not have the rights to. Although, it all is DC. I don't know how that works because they have a Flash in the Batman v Superman movie, and then they have a Flash in the show. It's kind of like, how are you gonna tie that together? How are you gonna work that out? So I don't know. Overall, though, I'm really excited for this season. I'm excited to see where it goes because the Flash between the Flash and Arrow is my favorite show. Um, Obviously, Legends of Tomorrow has that beat even more just because they're doing some cool stuff there. But I really do enjoy just the characters and the story and how well they handle it. So I'm excited to see where it's going from here. Let me know what you thought of this episode when you saw it. Let me know down in the comments below. Obviously, if you're watching beyond this, if you're already caught up with the show and watching it currently, don't spoil anything for me. But just if you want to discuss stuff, talk about it in the comments. Leave a like and subscribe for more of The Flash, and I'll see you at the next review. Peace out.